Welcome back to the Coaching Lab podcast. My name is Lee Baker, and I'm joined by Brad Cooper for today's episode, where we're going to be talking about hot topics in wellness, specifically around some recovery practices, but more so a candid conversation around just health and wellness trends, some myths, some factual information. We're not the experts by all means in some of these categories, but I would say that it's just a nice way to have a conversation around real things in the health and wellness industry and our perspective and maybe some aha moments for you as listeners. Specifically, recovery has become one of the biggest conversations in health and wellness, and from electrolytes to hydration strategies to all things in between, we're exploring how these tools might fit and where fundamentals matter most when it comes to our health. As a side note, if you're a coach who's looking to continue to build your knowledge around health and wellness topics, we'd love to have you join us in Estes Park, Colorado this fall for the 8th Annual Coaching Retreat and Symposium. So for more information, go to catalystcoachinginstitute.com/retreat. Now let's get started.
Excellent. This is going to be fun, Lee. Let's jump right in, take it away, and I'll follow your lead.
Okay. I'm starting off with, I think, just diving right in with the question on why do you think recovery has become such a prominent topic in health and wellness?
I think there's so much around that. We're tired. People are just tired. And instead of saying, I'm tired, I wonder what that means. Ooh, maybe I should sleep. It's like, what hack can I pull off the internet that's going to help me with this? What shortcut can I take? Maybe you should sleep. I was thinking, sleep maybe at some point, but I think first I'm going to try this weird thing. Maybe you should sleep. Well, but I saw this video from a guy who has no background, but he looks cool. And so I'm going to do that. Maybe you should sleep. Yeah, but I mean, it's insane. You and I talk about the cornerstones all the time of move, fuel, rest, and connect. Folks, we're going to talk about a lot of fun stuff today, a lot of things you're seeing on the internet, a lot of things you're hearing from friends, coworkers, workout buddies. Come back to those 4, move, fuel, rest, and connect. If you cover those 4, you're taking care of 95+%. Everything else we talk about is going to be a rounding error, even the stuff that works. So please, and I'm coming at this from 2 different perspectives. I love the science side. I love the research. That's my heart. But I'm also coming at it as an endurance athlete, 11-time Ironman. We won the Race Across America bike race. I love marathons. Ran 12 miles this morning. It's a beautiful day here in Colorado. So I'm trying to get the performance side too. I'm not just sitting here going, well, yeah, you probably don't need that. No, I'm looking for that too. But most of it doesn't make a difference if you're not addressing the cornerstone. So, Lee, the answer to your question is, I think we're just so used to shortcuts. And we love this idea of hacks. And people forget the original definition of a hack was someone that didn't know what they were doing. So now we're promoting, hey, here's a hack. Oh, I want a strategy that ends up being fake because the guy has to leave town because he's selling snake oil. Why would I want to do? It's amazing to me that word has garnered so much positive attention when it's so negative in its origin.
Yeah. And I think, in the health and wellness industry, in our culture in general, when I think of recovery now, I think, and why it's become so popular, it's like we're selling like sustainability, I would say over time. Like it's like a recovery method so that we can just keep going versus really considering, okay, why am I using these recovery tools, or why am I wanting to slow down or rest? But it's like this idea that it's just go, go, go. And if we put in some recovery, we can continue to go, which I would say on one hand is good so that we are able to continue to go and feel good, but also not just push through everything. Like the recovery tool isn't a hack just to be at 100% all the time, because then we'll just burn out. And I think that's coming from like the coaching well-being lens of things from my side, and just seeing that from clients even who are like, Lee, these people are talking about how I need to drink a gallon of water. And, while in the coaching space, we're not telling people what to do or how to do it or prescribing them, but having this curious conversation around like, what's important to you about drinking more water? And you mentioned a gallon of water. If you were to drink a gallon of water a day, what would happen, kind of thing. And when you have people critically think about this stuff, it changes their perspective on whether or not they actually even include it in their routine. So
I like what you said there. And I think we probably agree. Our goal today is not to get you to think differently. It's to get you to think. we're blindly just chasing these videos on Instagram and X and Facebook, and we're not taking a deeper dive to say, what is the background of this person sharing this? What is the evidence that does or doesn't support it? Why would I trust that person just because they seem to look fit or be charismatic? That doesn't mean their information is accurate. And so, again, our goal today is to get you to think. We're not exactly right. As Lee said, this is not our expertise, but we both spend a lot of time studying this area. And so we'll give you the latest that we're hearing and reading and studying and applying in our own lives.
That brings me to my next question on how do you personally decide whether like a wellness trend is worth paying attention to, which I think goes in line with that area of just critically thinking through things. But what would you say are your red flags or moments when you're like, that might be something I would like to actually try?
Yeah, it's kind of a multi-pronged approach. So first is what we talked about, the cornerstones. If I'm not addressing move, fuel, rest, connect, then I have no business looking at any other strategies. So my first thing is, how's my sleep? How's my fueling? How's my activity level? How's my relationship with those people that are most important to me? Susanna primarily, our kids, our son-in-laws and daughter-in-law. So how are those? And then I look for the evidence. And then, and this is important, because the evidence is always it's a following indicator. It's never a leading indicator. So the research on X might be 4 years behind when the top athletes in the world are using it. So I keep track of what the top endurance athletes are doing, implementing, what they're seeing, what they're talking about. And I don't give it full credibility, but I give it curiosity. And I'll say, oh, that's interesting. So, and I'm not going to name something here, but so they're doing, that's interesting. Maybe I will try that and do my own N of 1. And then track these other things. So we'll talk about some of the things that I like to track to see how my body's responding to the gym, to the bike, to the running. And that's the thing. Treat yourself as an N of 1 if you're going to pursue something that the evidence doesn't support. And frankly, even if you're going to choose something that the evidence does support, because any evidence there's a bell curve. And you may not be right in the middle of that bell curve. You may be an outlier. You may be an exception. So that's where finding your own baseline, not finding it, tracking your own baseline on some critical components, things like resting heart rate, morning HRV readings, max heart rate in a serious workout. It's like some of those baselines allow you to see, is this change making a difference? When I add 20 minutes of sleep, what happens to my HRV? When I add one interval session to my running or biking or hiking or whatever you enjoy doing a week, what does that do to my resting heart rate? So again, it's 3 prongs for me, I think. It's stay with the cornerstones, follow the evidence, and glance at what the athletes are doing. And I think that's also a good test for some of the big claims. And folks, follow the money. Let's not kid ourselves. When you see big claims about supplements, it's someone who's being paid by the supplement producer, or it's the supplement company, or it's an athlete that's sponsored by this. So be aware. Don't write it off for that. Glance at it, but also realize it. And then if someone's making a claim, there are so many supplement companies out there. And one of my tests with that is when a supplement company comes out with something that says, oh, this is going to change, that's when I look back at the athletes and see, are the best in the world using this? Because their livelihood depends on being 0.5% better. So if this supplement company is claiming this makes a 20%, 30%, 5%, 8% difference, and the top athletes in the world aren't using it, there's something inconsistent there.
I love that. And I was giggling a little bit because I was thinking the top athletes. And I know, Brad, that I wouldn't say that I'm not an athlete, but I think I'm I don't run 12 miles every Thursday morning. But I think when it comes to like when I decide whether a trend's worth paying attention to, similarly, I think about the foundational, the basics. I call them like, the basics, the cornerstones, but I thinking about, okay, am I doing those things before I even mess around or experiment with anything else? Because then it starts to feel overwhelming. Like if you're not sleeping well, you're not eating, you're not moving your body consistently throughout the day or getting some kind of like dynamic exercise, that's where, in my opinion, you start. And then you can experiment with some of these other things.
So important.
So I think that's number one. And then I always go back to the evidence too. I think, there's so much, I call it noise. There's so much noise out there. And, you go to the evidence, but I would also say, instead of trying to like incorporate all the wellness trends, if you're curious about one, do some research, think critically about it, like then see if the people who are talking about it are credible and kind of follow the trail with that. But don't try and look at 5 different ones as well, because then you're also going to feel overwhelmed because you're not going to feel like you're making traction. If you're saying, okay, I'm going to go to the sauna, I'm going to drink more water, I'm also going to be building in recovery efforts.
And you don't know what works.
It's just all the things. Right.
Yeah. Be a scientist, folks. Be a scientist.
Yes.
N of 1, kind of a funny story. When I was going through my PhD, I had these amazing, Mark and Martin were my supervisors, and they talked me off the cliff all the time, and I wouldn't have made it without them. But the one thing that they consistently had to do was say, Brad, there's too many variables in that study. Because I'd have these study ideas where I'd be like, what if we did this and this and this, and we track this and this? And they'd be like, that would be amazing, and it's impossible to study. Because when you have more than 1 or maybe 2 variables you're addressing, you don't know what's influencing it. So as Lee's saying, if you're going to try to implement 3 different things simultaneously, you have no idea what's helping. So treat yourself as that science project. Keep everything constant. Get those cornerstones in place. Then pick your one thing. Do that for a month or whatever you decide to do, and track what you've been tracking. Track that HRV, track that resting heart rate, track that performance level, track that sleep result, subjective result. That's huge, Lee. That's a great comment.
So let's dive into maybe some of these wellness trends, because I know people are just waiting at the edge of their seat around, okay, when are Brad and Lee going to start talking about how much water I should drink? And we're not going to tell you how much water to drink, but we are going to talk a little bit about hydration and electrolytes. So, Brad, what would you say are some of the misconceptions around hydration?
Well, the low-hanging fruit is the old 8x8 rule. You need 8 glasses of 8 ounces of water every day. Yeah, that was a misreading of a 1945 study that sounds really good because it's easy to remember. Oh, you need 8x8. And some people are like, no, you don't need 8x8. You need, and it's sold by the water bottle companies and it sounds cool. And I love the stickers I put on my water bottle. So how fun is it to carry that thing around? But you don't need that. And again, as Lee said, we're not telling you how much to drink because we're all unique. There is that bell curve in hydration, as with everything else. But generally speaking, your thirst is accurate. Stop ignoring your thirst. You were created, you were developed as a creature for thirst to tell you when you're thirsty. Why would we not use that? So generally speaking, thirst is dependable. Not 100% of the time. There are situations when we were doing Race Across America, the time we came through Arizona, it was 120 degrees. I needed to drink whether I felt like it or not because I knew I was losing far more than I realized. But those exceptions are rare. Generally speaking, your thirst is great. Go with your thirst and you'll be on track. And don't overhydrate because hyponatremia, I don't know if you've heard that term, but a guy named Noakes, Professor Noakes down in South Africa, I don't remember what year this was. It was probably late 70s. He had this hypothesis that more people were dying from overhydration in marathons than underhydration. And everyone's like, you're a knucklehead. Like, are you kidding me? Of course that's not true. It turned out to be true. They were overhydrating, didn't have equal electrolytes. They weren't it was a lot of runners that were kind of like a very slow run. So they were, 5-6 hour marathoners. They were out there a long time and they just kept drinking and drinking and drinking and drinking. And they created this hyponatremia. So you can drink too much. It can be literally dangerous to drink too much. So just be aware of that.
I want to circle back to one thing that you said around thirst, because sometimes I don't know whether it's being in tune with our body to even understand What does
Yes.
thirst feel like?
Yes.
Like, how do I, as soon as like when Brad, you said like, drink when you're thirsty, my first thought was like, how do people know when they're thirsty?
Good.
Because we just go all day that we're not really connecting with like, what do I need right now? What does that feel like?
Yeah.
What's my body telling me? So Brad, how do you know when you're thirsty?
Yeah, I love that, Lee. And I think you're really good about coming back to this in some of the stuff we were talking about before we hit record, of being present, of being aware of your body, what it's telling you. And so your answer is the best answer to this. When you're not realizing when you're thirsty, if you get through the whole day and you realize, oh my goodness, I didn't drink anything today, then you need to go talk to Lee, because that's the issue. That's a different issue. It's not lack of hydration, it's lack of presence. So yes, I think I actually love that as you're saying that. Like, could thirst become our reminder to be present in this moment? Wow. When's your book coming out, Lee? I want to read it. I love it. I love it.
Next year. No.
Okay.
But yeah, I was just thinking about that because I thought about the other day, side note, I've been trying to track my water intake recently. And I will notice some days I couldn't tell you when I drank water, and it's not, but I knew I drank enough. Like I felt good. I didn't have headaches. So, that's me personally. Some of the cues that I know I'm not drinking enough water, but what that tells me, and this might be sidetracked, but it goes back to the presence, because I'm like, I don't remember when I drank water today, which means I wasn't fully present in how many moments throughout the day that I was drinking water. So I do think like thirst, our cues with our body, and presence is a big thing when it comes to any of this stuff. Yeah. So anything else on hydration?
Yeah, urine color is helpful. Now that depends on your supplements that you're taking. So I've got one supplement the doc has me utilizing based on blood test results, and we can talk about that with supplements if you want. But it lights up my urine color. So it's not helpful on those days. I only take that a couple days a week. But if you don't have a supplement that's throwing that off, generally speaking, you're not looking for perfectly clear, and maybe this is too much information for some people, but it doesn't hurt to glance at your urine color and see, is it a little on the dark side? Then I'm probably not hydrated. Is it completely clear? Maybe I'm drinking slightly too much. So urine color, it varies on a lot of different things, but it's something to glance at.
Yes, I like that. That's a good indicator, along with presence and thirst, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I was thinking about too, some clients will ask, my trainer has told me to walk around with a gallon of water a day, and it feels overwhelming to me. So I would say maybe just a thought or two on if someone is wanting to drink more water but decrease the noise. I know we've talked about thirst cues, presence. Any other suggestions or tips for someone who's like, I don't drink water very often?
Yeah, well, first of all, if your trainer's having you carry a gallon of water around and you're using that to do curls throughout the day, then that's probably really valuable. But if you're trying to force drink it, that's a different question. I think hydration, generally speaking, is one of those autopilot things once you get it established. So I generally have a 20, first thing I do when I wake up in the morning, because sleep is dehydrating. So when I get up in the morning, as I'm making Susanna's coffee or getting my cup ready, I'll drink 20 ounces of water, just right out of the gate. Boom, there's 20 ounces. And then I'll have usually 2 cups of coffee or 1.5 cups of coffee. So that's enough. And there's an old wives' tale that coffee doesn't count because that's a dehydrator. No, sorry, folks. That's false news, fake news, whatever. It's fluid. It counts as hydrating. So if you got 2 cups of coffee that are, 12 ounces each, that's another 24 ounces. As soon as I get back from my run, depending on how hot it was, again, you're thinking, what am I doing? If I don't run, I'm not drinking as much. This morning's run, I came back and immediately had about 20 more ounces of water with an electrolyte because it was hot out, because I was getting into the sauna as soon as I got back from the run. So think about don't follow these things blindly. Think through, did I sweat a lot? Do I live in Colorado where it's dry? Do I live in Hawaii where it's humid? what is happening with my sweat, because that affects the decisions we make, which is then seen in our thirst and our urine color. So hopefully everyone's seeing these are little pieces that you're putting together. They're little puzzle pieces. And as you plug them in, you go, oh, well, I actually, today's my day off. I didn't do a fitness activity today. Okay, probably don't drink as much. And certainly probably don't need electrolytes. Oh, no, yesterday I was out in the yard working on, weeding and putting some new flowers in. And man, it was hot. It was the middle of the day. I did it over the lunch hour and and it's humid. Okay, so what does that tell you? So you're assessing you. You're not following a generic rule that somebody on social media is promoting to you. So I think that would be, and the last thing I wanted to say is I'm 60. So for all my 60-year-old friends out there, you know what happens about 2 a.m. every night. Yes, we're up to go to the bathroom. So I have a lot of friends that are like, yeah, I make sure I drink X amount in the evenings. And I'm like, you're an idiot. Like, why are you drinking water at night when you already are waking up to go to the bathroom? So I front load. I'm not giving you this advice, but something to consider. I don't drink much fluid I drink 0 after 6 p.m. And I have maybe 12 ounces with dinner tops. So just think about your day, your broader goals. How is this influencing your recovery from your interval session, your gym session, your run, whatever it is. And then how does it influence the rest of your life? But once you have it automated, you're probably doing the same thing every day. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. You want to be an active participant in your life.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So you mentioned electrolytes, and I would say that's another thing that's coming up recently is people adding things to their water. And there's a lot going on in that. So I think we can unpack it a little bit, but I would say electrolytes are probably the biggest one that people have questions around. So do you think they're helpful, necessary?
I would say
it depends. I would say.
Yeah. Are you running for an hour in humidity? Yes, they're necessary. Are you going for a walk with your dog in the morning? No, they're not necessary. Are you competing in a 10-hour Ironman event? Yes, they're necessary. Are you going for a hike in a cool setting? No, they're not necessary. So you're losing electrolytes when you're sweating. Now, we don't always realize when we're sweating. A lot of that, it just is happening. It's not like, oh, I'm dripping wet. You may not be dripping wet, but you're still sweating. So don't over exaggerate what I'm saying here. But I generally don't take in electrolytes unless it's over 2-hour workout or I'm spending some time in the sauna. So I am basing it on sweat loss. I know that I'm not just losing water. I'm also losing electrolytes. Balance that out. On a day when I'm not sweating a lot, I don't need electrolytes. So you're trying to refill what you're losing. Act accordingly.
And it's a post-activity behavior, right? Some people ask about that too. Is it better to do as a preventative? Like if I know I'm going to the Open in a few weeks, I'm going to be walking in the hot sun for 18 holes and following around the golfers all day. It's like some people would think, okay, I'm going to preventatively hydrate more, so have more electrolytes in the morning versus after I've walked 20,000 steps for the day.
Yeah, I think it's big picture. I think if you're going out, like in your example, it's probably not going to get hot until 10-ish or so, right? So if you're out there waiting in line to try to get the good holes that you're wanting, you may be out there at 6. I don't think I'd be drinking electrolytes and a ton of water at 6 and 7, because then you're trying to find the bathroom there, and now you miss the top golfers or whatever. But maybe having it available, and as the temperatures get into the 70s and start climbing it, now we start thinking, oh, you know what? I'm sweating a little bit, I think. So preload, maybe a teensy bit, but to translate that to a race, if I were doing a 10K, so that's 40-ish minutes, I'm probably not going to use electrolytes. But if I'm doing a half marathon, I might use a little bit. That's like an hour and 25 or whatever. If I'm doing a marathon, though, I am going to take it in. So again, you're saying 40 versus 120 versus 3. Those are different equations, and then temperature matters. Is it 80? Is it 42? So, yeah, I wouldn't purposely preload. I would just, yeah, I probably wouldn't.
And then we get some electrolytes from our food too. I think sometimes when people are thinking about hydration, electrolytes, supplementation, going back to the fuel piece of this, right, is like we also get some of this from what we eat.
For the average person, you don't need to supplement your electrolytes.
Right. You mentioned the sauna a few times. And so I wanted to transition into that because I think that has become a big sauna and cold plunges, cryo chambers, the extremes, right? Really cold to really hot. And people want to know, is it beneficial and which is more beneficial than the other? So what are your thoughts on that? It sounds like you have a sauna.
Yeah, I've been studying saunas for 3 years now because they're not cheap. And we've talked about installing one in our house, and we've kicked that around again for about 3 years. We interviewed one guest on the podcast last year about it. We were working on a little sneak preview here. We're going to eventually have this guy, the top researcher in the world on saunas, is going to be on the podcast. He's working on a book right now. We've probably traded 15 emails, 20 emails. And as soon as that thing is teed up, we're going to get him on the podcast. So that is coming. And so you can get the details from him. But in all my research, I have found, and keep in mind, I come from a background as a physical therapist and athletic trainer. That's what I did before I moved into more of a healthcare exec, and then we launched our company in 2007. So I came from, you got the hot tub, you got the ice bath for the athletes in the training room. And every day you go get in the ice bath. Oh, go get in the hot. Go switch back and forth. Do 2 minutes here, 2 minutes here, 2 minutes here. So that's what I grew up with, was one or the other, or the combo process that was back then very common. And then as a runner, I spent more than my share of time in that ice bath. Now, ice baths are awesome for social media posts, because they're so dramatic and they're so, and you're so tough because you get in the ice bath. And the reality is, once you've done it 6 times, it's really no big deal. Like, I do not do well in cold. Climbing Everest is the one thing Susanna has said, absolutely not. You're never doing that because you will die. And she's right. But even for me, after I've been in the ice bath 5-6 times, your body's amazing. It adapts to everything. So again, looks great on social media. The data on ice baths, quite interesting, my fellow athletes and others. If you're looking for a burst in your heart rate and release of endorphins short term, knock yourself out. Of course, getting in ice makes your body go, wow, what's happening? And that kicks everything into high gear. And if you get a thrill out of that, take your thrill. There's a lot worse things you could be doing than getting an ice bath. If you're looking for muscle recovery, so you're like, I'm training for this race. I've got this little thing. I want to, make sure my muscles are recovering faster. You're actually harming yourself, because what happens is the body must respond. So I go and do a hill session. My muscles are sore. They're supposed to be sore. That's how the body works. Now they're basically micro tears. That's not a bad thing. That's the muscles, being pulled, pushed. And then we get in the ice bath and it reduces the inflammatory response. That sounds good on paper. I'm reducing the inflammatory response. That's terrible. The inflammatory response is how you get stronger. That's how your muscles get better. So what we're doing, and this is somewhat recent data, what we're doing with the ice bath, if I go do that hill session, an interval session on the track or whatever, and I go jump in the ice bath, frankly, it feels good. So you're like, oh, good, I'm doing something. This is helpful. I'm going to be better tomorrow. You probably will feel a little better tomorrow, but a month from now, you're going to be slower than you would have been had you skipped that ice bath. So if the ice bath feels good to you, that's totally fine. If you're looking for optimal performance, that's not totally fine. So that's the ice bath piece. If you like it, do it. You're not harming yourself. You may be reducing your performance ability, but that's a minor thing that only influences the top, 3% of the folks out there. The sauna is getting huge run right now, and it's deep and it's high quality research. And thanks to Finland, it is lifelong stuff. Generally speaking, if you have the option, lean towards a traditional sauna. The infrareds are much less expensive, easier to install. We're not sure if they mimic the traditional. It's a very different response. You're getting a very different. A traditional and infrared sauna are not cousins. Well, maybe they're cousins. They're not sisters. They're different treatments. So just realize that, whichever way you go with that. There's probably some value to both. They're talking about saunas are the poor man's altitude. So all the research about you need to, live at high altitude and then train at low altitude that allows you to increase your red blood cell count, and then you can perform at a higher level. They're finding that saunas consistently, and this can be done with a hot bath also. It's very uncomfortable. I've tried it before we got our sauna, but it's got to be a pretty, it's not a, this is so nice. It's a, I'm not really comfortable here. How much longer do I want to go here? And folks, please, we're not docs. Be sure you're safe. Don't die in the bathtub and then complain to us about, I guess if you're dead, you can't complain to us, but just be smart. This is stressful. The reason saunas work, the reason hot baths work is because it's pushing your body beyond what it's used to doing. So my routine now with the sauna is immediately, as close as I can, immediately after a bike or a run, I hop in the sauna for 20-ish minutes it's 194 is the highest level that a home sauna can go. And then you can add the humidity with the rocks, the water on the rocks, and that takes you to probably the equivalent with humidity of around 210 or something. And I'm kind of uncomfortable at about 22 minutes. So that's about as long as my schedule allows me to go because I've got stuff to do. But it's also about as long as I want to be in there. And the data backs that up. It's looking at 20 to 30 minutes. Some protocols look at 2 by 15 or 2 by 10 or 3 sevens or that kind of thing. And you don't want to go beyond what your body's accepting. But if you have access to a sauna, take advantage of that because there are some cardiovascular benefits even if you're not competing. And if you're competing, it's a legal way to cheat, just like caffeine.
I love that. I went to a sauna this winter, and I would say that I had seen the recommendations as being 22 minutes for like a stint, whether you broke it up or not,
Yeah.
2 or 3 blocks or just 1 block and then being done, but not over exerting. And the first time there's a group of us that went in there, the first time we went in, it is a little bit of a shock. When you go in there and you are in a true sauna environment, your body is like, what's going on here? Yeah. And then we went in through 2 more cycles and it starts to feel better. Like
yes.
it didn't feel as much of a shock. So I would say not that we're saying everyone needs to go to a sauna, but if you are wondering what the experience is like, personally, I would say, and the 3 people I was with, we walked in and we were like, ooh, the first time we walked in. And then the second cycle through, it just felt kind of like a walk in the park, a hot walk in the park, but it didn't feel as jarring. And I think that's our body's way of responding to it initially and then settling in to that kind of environment.
And you're going to notice it in other situations in life too. I came back from that run this morning and it is gorgeous in Colorado right now, but it's also going to be 90 this weekend. So it was probably almost 80 when I was running this morning, and no problem. It was fine. And I literally made that comment to Susanna when I came back. I was like, you know what? I think that sauna, my body's adapting because I don't even really think about the heat anymore. So your body does adapt to the sauna and it adapts to life. So in your gardening, in your running, in your lunch walk, you're going to notice, oh, I'm not sweating as much because, wow, Our bodies are amazing, folks. Our bodies are amazing. Maybe that's our message here. Treat your body well. It will treat you well. Move, fuel, rest, connect. 95%. Play with the other things. But if you treat it well and you're conscious of what you're doing, as Lee was talking about, it adapts. It does beautiful, amazing things.
Yes, agreed. And I think the other point here is that if we are incorporating some of these things in, it can't maybe be a one-off either. Like if we are saying, oh yes, we're going to drink more water more consistently, or yes, we want to use the sauna. We don't want to use the sauna maybe once a year. We probably want to use it more consistently so it becomes part of our habit and our routine.
Yeah. Four times a week, I think, is the generally recommended dosage to see the performance side of things. Any use is valuable, but the 4 times a week, I think, is kind of the recommended minimal dose. The folks in Finland, the data on them, it's amazing. They have, what was it? They have one sauna for every like 1.6 people or something. Like every home has a sauna. Not every nice home, not every large home. It's like you got a 2-bedroom apartment, you probably have a sauna. Like it's incredible, their numbers, and it's paying off in their health rates that they're seeing out there.
I will say that David and I have explored. We did bark up the tree of making our own sauna. We haven't done that, but
people do. Yeah, I mean, you have a talented husband, so I think you've got that potential.
He was like, what would you like to do at the backyard? And I was like, well, there's a lot of good research on saunas. And given I just went to, I had a wellness weekend in the winter. And that's maybe one of the reasons why my body was like, oh my gosh, because it was 30 degrees outside and I walked into a sauna. Totally. But my friends gave me a hard time afterwards because I walked out and it was this like explanation of, I'm just feeling my best life right now. Like and they were like, what is wrong with you? And I do think like that's feedback too. It could be community, right? Like we haven't talked really about that in like this wellness trend, but I would say that's coming around in the wellness universe too, is like the power of community. And I would say that there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Whenever you're in community and doing anything with them or as it relates to well-being, you are going to feel better. So at the end, I was like, I'm just a new person. Like, this is great. And like, I went from a 40-degree cold plunge to like a sauna for 20 minutes. I'm a new person. And they were like, oh my gosh, what is wrong with her?
Who is this? Well, I mean, we keep saying the cornerstones, but you just mentioned the 4th one that gets ignored. Move, fuel, rest, connect. Don't forget that, folks. I'm an introvert. A lot of introverts listening to this, and you're like, I don't want to connect. I don't like people. I don't want. Folks, we need people too. Even us introverts, we need that connection. And I don't lean into that very well. I got together with a buddy yesterday that I just love spending time with, but I don't initiate because I'm content in my office, working, reading books, whatever. So folks, don't forget the 4th cornerstone. Move, feel, rest, connect, even for us introverts.
Yes. Connect with your community. And we talked also about connecting with yourself in this process. Yeah. Like not just, throwing things at the wall and seeing if they stick, being intentional about this and asking yourself, why do I want to do these things? And what's important about them? And why am I curious? Yeah. And is this vetted kind of thing? Yeah, love that. So Brad, you mentioned earlier a little bit around technology and tools. Like, we're kind of talking about all of these different things you can do for health, wellness, and this idea of tracking. Like, okay, if we're gonna do the sauna and we're gonna track it or try for a month, what are we looking for, or how do we track if it's quote unquote working? Right? I think that's something that people want to know too. Like, if they're going to invest time, energy, resources, finances into something, is it going to work, and how do they know if it does?
I think that's a really important one. I appreciate you including this in that, because there are so many options. And so many of those options are red herrings. They're interesting, but not meaningful. And keep in mind, folks, the difference between those two. They're interesting. I like looking at a lot of this data and going, that's kind of interesting. But I only look at about 3 things that I say is meaningful. So one of those, and we have no connection with this company, but there's an app you can get on your phone called HRV, the number 4 training. So HRV4 training, and I think it's $10 or something. I have not upgraded to the professional one. I've been using their $10 version for probably 3 years. We had the creator of it on the podcast, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And it's such a better monitor. It's a 60-second test every morning. You go to the bathroom, you do the 60-second thing. It's just your finger. You don't need any equipment. It's your phone, your index finger and your phone. And I do that. I've probably done that 362 days out of the year, the past 3 years. And what it does is it tells me, is my body responding to life? And by life, that's stress, that's work, that's travel, that's workouts, that's racing. It encompasses all of those things, because if you're not familiar with HRV, we've done some really cool interviews on HRV, but it is probably the best thing we have now, if measured accurately. And that's why I want to make a point of pointing this HRV tool out, because I also have a Garmin that measures HRV, and it's not very good. And Garmin's amazing. I love Garmin, but their HRV is not as accurate the way they test it as the HRV for training. So back to the baseline. HRV is your heart rate variability. And it's not better to be super high and it's not better to be super low. It's better to be within your zone. So HRV for training tells you, okay, you're a 7.6. That means nothing. I never would compare to Lee or Susanna or Sabrina. It's just, it compares you to you. But it tells you if you're on the lower end for you or the higher end for you. And that's the days I'll back off. So if I have an interval session scheduled and my body's not responding to the travel or the work or the life stressors or whatever it might be, then I'll dial that back. And when it says all clear, Katie bar the doors. Let's go. Let's do this thing. So HRV is your best overall view of all things being equal. So it looks at all that stuff. So I would strongly recommend, if you don't use the HRV for training, something like that is dependable and the evidence backs up. I also like to look at resting heart rate. It tracks that as well. So I know my resting heart rate in the morning is 41, 42, something like that. If it's 45, 46, something's off. If it's 38, 39, I'm either at low altitude or maybe something's off. So you want to track those couple of things. And then all the other stuff. And sleep is the best example. We need to talk about sleep trackers. They're not there yet, folks. I wish they were. They're not there. So if you're tracking your sleep and you're giving it any credence beyond curiosity, please stop today. Now, there will come a time when there'll be some accurate data. We're not there yet. I've tried all the tools. Our son, back when he's a doctor now, but when he was like 11, he stole this sleep tool I had because it could track his sleep, and he was super curious, and it was just fun to see him dive into that. But it wasn't that super accurate either. I look at it on my Garmin, but I don't look at it until it's time for bed the next night. Because you know what happens when you see your Garmin says you didn't sleep very well last night? What happens to your day? You're like, oh, I'm so tired. My Garmin said I didn't sleep very well. Your Garmin doesn't know. It's guessing. It's basing it on a lot of things, and it's better than it was 3 years ago, but it's not there. Nor is your Oura Ring, nor is your Whoop, nor is your Wahoo Fitness, nor is your Fitbit. We're getting there, but don't let it influence your day. So I love to look at that number. I'm curious about it, but I look at it right before bed the next night. I don't look at it the morning after the sleep, because then it influences my day, and I don't want it to influence my day. I want reality to influence my day. So be careful with some of those other numbers.
That's funny, because I do look at my data in the morning. However, with the caveat of I look at that versus looking at the news. So I switched it from looking at from my health data to the news, and I use it as information, but not as, I think that's a big thing for people with tracking metrics. You know, if we get too in the weeds and like a punitive perspective on like, okay, our Oura Ring or our Whoop says we didn't sleep well, or it says we need to be more active, or it says, you know, I think when you're looking at tools, consider how it's providing the information, consider the messaging around it, because it's all information. But once we start to say, oh, we only got this today, it means we didn't exercise at all. that's in my opinion a bad route to go down if we're only start to measuring it and our success and our progress from a sense of like a metric we see on an app or a tracker. But I would say it's good information. We say, okay, here's the information. When we start to say, oh, I only got this today versus this, and I was shooting for an hour workout. I only got 30, so it really doesn't count. That's a bad rabbit trail to go down in terms of our confidence and self-efficacy, I would say. Yeah. So I think cumulatively too, tools and trackers have it. Like looking at it from like not just one day, but from a month or 2 weeks or I think we get too in the weeds with it. And from a sleep perspective, I look at quantity versus like if it tells me how long I've been in REM sleep, I just look at, okay, in the past week, have I gotten at least 7 hours of sleep? Yeah. Versus how much deep sleep or light sleep or how many times I was awake. I just look at quantitatively because that's information for me. If I'm only sleeping an average of 5.5 hours 1 week, I know I'm probably needing more sleep. So I think objectively looking at some of these things too is important.
Well, and I love, in terms of the workouts, I love the Garmins and the Stravas and all those kind of things. But my favorite tool is a little whiteboard calendar I keep in our gym, in our garage. And I'll just track total time in the gym, total time on the bike, total miles run, and days in the sauna or not. And then at the end of each week, it's running 50 miles, gym 2 hours, bike 2.5 hours, sauna times 6. And that is a great, super simple, old school, quick at a glance. How was your week? Like it summarizes everything up. And so anyway, you don't have to get super technical on this stuff, folks. It's looking at that big picture and then looking at the month and how the month is developing out. And it's kind of a cool picture.
So before we wrap up, anything else, Brad, that we haven't covered in terms of topics before we do we're doing a new thing that I'm trying it out, this rapid fire close on health topics. I'm going to put Brad in the hot seat here, but anything else you feel like we haven't covered?
Well, you mentioned like the pressure gun, you mentioned cryo rooms, you mentioned all these things. Folks, treat those as interesting toys. I mean, we're not talking a 0.05 influence on your outcome. So, for example, the big, long, I'm going to get in trouble with somebody here, but the big, long boots that you can put your legs in and it goes, it's like compression sleeves on your legs. And triathletes and runners are like, these are amazing. I've used them. They do feel pretty good. I'm convinced the reason they work is they force you to sit for 30 minutes while you have them on, and runners and triathletes never sit. So they're getting their value by the fact that they force you to sit because you can't move those doggone things on. So just, you like using them? Awesome. Knock yourself out. Spend the $2,000, whatever. They look cool. They're great for social media. Or sit on the couch with a book for $28 and learn something, or maybe do both. So I'm giving those a hard time, but there are so many tools like that when we step back and we think, what's this really doing? Oh, this is causing me to just sit and rest, which I never do. Oh, this is getting me out in the sunshine, which I never do. So I think take a step back. Like, here's the tool. Now take a step back and just realize, move, fuel, rest, connect, and you've covered almost everything.
I was going to say that's the ultimate hack, but is the move, fuel, rest, connect. Yeah. But it really is the foundational principles of health and well-being. And these other pieces can make
toys.
It's fun to explore. Yeah. And if you're exploring things for health and well-being, it means you're an active participant in your journey, right? So
totally. Running is at an all-time high. There are more runners. We had 100 people at our local track group the other night. 100. It was beautiful. And these were all shapes and sizes and ages and speeds. And it was just this beautiful community coming together because people are wanting that connection in a meaningful, healthy way. and they're willing to do some hard things to be a part of that community. And it's incredible. And it doesn't matter how fast they go. They're there. They're getting better every day because they're part of that community. So look for those opportunities, folks.
Maybe one of these times that I'm in Estes Park, I will go for a run.
You heard it here first, folks.
I do exercise frequently and I do hike, but I used to run and was plagued with IT band issues and other things. And so I felt a little defeated. But
you heard it here, folks. If you sign up for the retreat, Lee will go for a run with you at the retreat. So boom, new marketing, Lee.
Yes, and I haven't disclosed how long the run will be, so you'll have to join me to figure it out. Okay, so as we close, we're going to try this rapid fire close for each topic that we talked about as being overhyped, appropriately hyped, or underappreciated. So first one, hydration.
Way overhyped. Come back to reality, folks. Listen to your thirst.
Electrolytes.
Depends on the audience. Serious athlete in the heat? Absolutely. Average individual? Maybe occasionally, but almost never.
Saunas?
I think you're going to see this you're starting to see it now. I think over the next 5 years, you're going to see this expanding significantly. You're already seeing it in a lot of health clubs and rec centers adding it that never had it before. And obviously I'm prejudiced. We decided to invest in one. So you're hearing a prejudiced opinion here, but I'm seeing a difference in my own performance, my own body's response, my HRV, my resting heart rate. And I think we're going to see it on a much broader basis as it continues to expand.
Cold plunges.
Great for social media. If you like them, do them. You're not harming anything except you're not allowing yourself to get as strong or as fast as you could. But if that's not your priority, and it's not for most people, and it gives you that burst, that's totally fine.
Lastly, the recovery tools. So the massage guns, compression boots, red light therapy.
Yeah, it's the trade-off. If it costs $500, is that the best use of your $500? Would it be better to go get a VO2 max test? Would it be better to get a deeper dive blood work done? Would it be better to hire a coach? Would it be better to do something that you know will have a positive impact versus a fun toy? Now, for some people, money doesn't matter. They're like, whatever, $500, who cares? But that's not true for most of us. So if you're spending $500 and that's what you've decided you want to spend it on, just realize you're not getting much of a return. I always think ROI, return on investment. If I'm going to spend $500, I hope that's making me faster. I hope that's making me healthier. I hope that's allowing my health span to increase. Otherwise, I don't want to spend that $500. So just consider the trade-offs. There's nothing wrong with most of those toys. There's just very minimal, at best, benefit to most of those toys. And there's some great benefit to the deep dive blood work. There's some great benefit to a coach. There's some great benefit to, having a VO2 max test done. So I would say look for the things with the high ROI. And then if money's not an issue, do it all. But if it is, pick one of those three and then maybe wait on the things that are just window dressing.
And lastly, move, fuel, rest, connect.
Yeah, folks, we've been saying that's 90%, 95%. It's probably 99%. Everything else we've talked about is essentially a rounding error. Get those 4 dialed in, your life will be better. And then you can fiddle with, and then the cool thing is, once those are dialed in, now you've removed those variables. Now you can try that supplement. Now you can try that interval session. Now you can try that whatever toy and see if it actually makes a difference. Otherwise, we're just throwing stuff against the wall and hoping maybe something sticks at some point.
Brad, I really enjoyed this conversation today, and I hope that listeners joining us were just able to see a candid conversation and real talk around wellness topics, what's worth their time, energy, exploration, and well-being.
That was fun. Good stuff. Folks, if you have any questions for us, just reach out anytime. Results@catalyst catalystcoachinginstitute.com. That's results at catalystcoachinginstitute.com. Lee or I will get back to you. Any tips on the podcast? Any topics you'd like us to cover down the road? We love hearing from you. So feel free, but also if you have any questions about coaching in your organization, or you're looking at as a coach trying to improve your skills, curious about the retreat, or wanting to move into that field, we'd love to chat with you. So thanks for joining us, Lee. Fantastic job. You did all the prep on this, and I really appreciate it. Great job.
Thanks.